One memorable phrase I remember from the movie SLC Punk is the quote, "fag bashed without the benefits," which Matthew Lillard's character says, referring to a friend of his who is mistaken for gay, beaten up for it, when he's really a guy who loves the ladies. I relate to that, and that has sort of been my existence, as far as I remember. Since I was 13 years old, I have dealt with homophobia, and oddly enough, I'm a straight man. Now, I could understand why people would think that I'm homosexual or bisexual. I get that. I know that for a male, I am effeminate in my mannerisms. But in all honesty, I do not think there's anything wrong with homosexuality. So if I were to be a homosexual myself, I would pretty well be out of the closet on that. I see no point in being in the closet. I have nobody I would be afraid of disappointing. I would not torment myself. If I were into men, I would just frankly say, yeah, I'm gay. What of it? But the honest truth of that is, I'm not. I desire women very much. I am heterosexual. I've just not been lucky as a heterosexual, and due to lack of luck, it's been hard trying to form my identity or to define myself in a masculine sort of way, or to be masculine. I frankly have no clue. Although maybe some of it's genetic, I have no idea. See, my father, when I grew up, was not a macho man. He was a veteran of the United States military. Yes, he was in the Army, became a sergeant during the time of the Vietnam War. He did not serve in the war, but he was in the military at that time. And he was not, though, as a father, a strict disciplinarian. He did not loom over me. He didn't scream at me. He didn't make me do push-ups. He didn't try to groom me into being a soldier myself. He didn't force me to go to military school. He was pretty well, for the most part, he could be quite annoying, but I loved him, and he loved me. He was an accepting father. And relating to this topic, he himself told me that if I were gay, he would still love me, which I think is great to have in a father. I wish more people could have that in a father, especially kids who actually are homosexual or transgender. Frankly, though, that just isn't who I am. It's not what I am. I may be a weirdo, I don't deny. I may not be, a macho, sports-playing, masculine man, but I am, frankly, heterosexual. So, frankly, in this day and age, with some of the people I've met over the past years, it hurts me to receive a different kind of what I feel is bullying in my interactions. Now, these are not people who are macho people. They're not stereotypical jocks or anything of that sort. And why the hell would they be? We're adults. But frankly, I would call them hipsters. These are people I've known who I've given up on friendship with because, frankly, I couldn't take their personalities. And the best way I could describe them is just these people who always talk in jokes, always talk in riddles, who never say anything honest or revealing. They always talk in riddles, quoting song lyrics that they know I have not heard of, quoting films, etc. But I tolerated them. I tried to be their friend. I would go to the parties they invited me to, even though they would make me feel awkward and then ignore me for the rest of the time, and then they would leave. And I would leave basically like, wow, gee, that was a waste of time. But that was my experience with these people. But these people, in their own way, were like bullies toward me, or they reminded me of the bullies I knew in my school years, the ones who would basically, as I feel, try to strip me of my identity. One thing I think is cruel about bullying, especially homophobic bullying, when you don't happen to be a homosexual yourself, is that the bullies are trying to strip you of your dignity. They're trying to tell you who you are, or tell other people who you are. Basically trying to sabotage the life you have. Sabotage any hope of having a girlfriend, of being thought of the way you want to be thought of. They take your identity and they warp it, and they use it for their own amusement. Which is exactly what these people were doing, which I think is a shame. I think that people who try to be unique individuals themselves should not twist the identities of others for their own amusement, but they did. They targeted me. They felt I was a moron, that I didn't understand what they were talking about, so I was easy to fuck around with, basically. But still, being the forgiving person I am, the person who tries to have friends, who tries to be accepting, who has some hope of redemption in human beings, I dealt with it. I went to their parties, I dealt with their insults, their rudeness, all the ways they humiliated me and talked down to me. And it wasn't until months ago I finally decided to cut off all avenues of contact. I blocked them from my Facebook. I had enough. Their bullying had gotten to the point where it was just plain ridiculousness. Just constantly pestering me on Facebook, mocking me, patronizing me. And I was just I just was saying to them outright, stop it. Quit this bullshit. Talk to me like a normal person. Treat me like a human being. Quit screwing with my life, or I'm blocking you. I'm wiping you away from my social life. And of course, they didn't take that request seriously on any account. And when, frankly, two of them posted to my Facebook profile, hey, I heard you two are dating, referring to me and a male acquaintance of mine at the time. And I frankly that's when I had enough, and I hit the block button on both of them. I'm aware there's no actual block button, but, the block option, so to say, but I call it the block button to be dramatic. But frankly, I did that. And of course, one of them twisted the story from what I heard, saying that I blocked them because I thought they were gay, which really pissed me off. But I opted not to retaliate, not to try to clear the air, just let them spread their bullshit, because frankly, there's only some people you can please, and some people are just destined to dislike you no matter what you do, or they're destined to be assholes and try to fuck with your life. And frankly, I just had to make my stand and say, well, we're really not friends if this is just how it is. Goodbye. And I wish I had done this sooner, because these were people I'd been trying my hardest to come see eye to eye with for a long time. And these are just people, and these aren't the only kind of people. Frankly, since my high school years, I came out basically socially inept. I was incredibly infatuated with this girl in my high school years. Nothing ever happened. I had such low self-esteem, and she was dating all these different guys. I pretty much figured she doesn't like me. If she does like me, she'll say so. She never did, and nothing ever happened. High school ended, and a good majority of women in my high school years hated me. I mean, really, I'm not kidding. If I sat like a foot near them, they would run away. They never wanted to sit at the same table with me. They didn't want to sit at the same desk as me. They thought I was the most grotesque human being ever. I mean, they called me a freak, literally. And I never did anything to them. I really did, but that was just how cruel high school was, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was a cruel time, If you weren't on the in-group, if you weren't an aggressive person who followed the same mindset, you were really just ousted. You were not worthy of being considered human. And so this it really depleted my self-esteem for a long time. You know, the homophobic bullying and just being treated like that, you know. It made life tough in retrospect, you know. And it still does. Even as a man in my 30s, I still have a hard time trying to be myself, hoping to have a happy life, hoping to try to have a good date, trying to meet women. It can be really a hard time. You know, the lack of self-esteem, it manifested and it reared its ugly head. Even when women started liking me, it was hard to be confident and to make the women want to stick around, because my lack of confidence just reared its ugly head and scared so many girls away. I lost a lot of what could have been girlfriends or maybe even wives had I just had a better state of mind and not have been so intense in my yearning to be loved as a male, as a heterosexual male desperate for a woman to love me back in all those years. And yeah, it's all I can say is to any person who thinks it's funny to tease a person, you know, to really be cruel to somebody, to try to manipulate them, to try to make them be somebody they're not, you know. And in my experience, there's been like gay men, or at least one or two gay men who have not respected me as a straight man, who have been pretty, you know, pervy. Been like a creepy straight guy to a lesbian, so to say. Reverse that situation, you know, a creepy gay guy to a straight guy. And to anybody who's watching me right now, if there would happen to be anybody, and if you are a person in this situation, male or female, gay or straight, bisexual, whatever, if you truly don't want to have a negative effect on a person, I'd suggest, please, if you see a person who obviously has a hard time with self-esteem, obviously has a hard time having their own identity and wanting to be happy, don't make it harder for them. Don't be a bully. Don't be an asshole. Don't make it harder for them to be who they are. You know, don't upset them. Don't trigger them. You know, don't try to bring back memories that they don't want, of the person who they don't want to be, you know? Be a friend. Be like my pug. Be a good friend. Be loyal and loving to a person you consider a friend, who you say that you love as they are. Don't be an asshole. Otherwise, you're no true friend. And I hope they do block you on Facebook or just stop talking to you. Something.